Well, I think it's almost time for a channel, isn't it?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Is everyone else ready?
I think so.
I think they are too.
Good.
Yeah. So I will do a very short meditation. And really the meditation, it's just to stop, take a breath, allow the intellect to take a back seat, because we want to connect with our heart energy. Our heart and brain and pineal all work together to give us intuitive messages. That's where the intuition comes from. And so let's take a breath, close our eyes, dismiss all thoughts of what we need to do when we finish or what we were doing before we started. This is your time. This is your sacred space. This is your gift to yourself, to sit and receive. Allow yourself to receive the perfect love that Cryon has.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. If you're new to this particular program, dear ones, you might ask the question, when channeling occurs, does the one in the chair, the one that is channeling, know what is being said? It leads me to tell you that the man in the chair has an agreement with me, the engineer of 30 years ago, made certain that he would hear and be there. He steps aside, you might say, but he's still here. And this was the agreement that I had with him, so that he would be comfortable with what comes through the veil. Now, there are many who channel where it makes no difference whatsoever. In fact, they say that it is a more complete experience, for some can get up and walk around, and my partner cannot. This was the trade-off, that his eyes would remain shut and that he would not move around. He's tried a number of times. It didn't work out well. I say this because he's here. It is not an out-of-body experience to the degree where he goes somewhere else and returns later and knows nothing that happened. Fully aware he is. He can even tell you what was said. But he does not influence the message. The message of Cryon can be summarized in many ways, but it's all about you, dear ones, and it changes. The messages change as you change. If you wish to see the kind of changes, even before these particular channels were recorded in an audio fashion, you can see it by reading the messages. And the first messages would seem cryptic, almost metaphoric, and not what they are today, because the consciousness has changed of those receiving. It really has. The biggest message I ever had to any of you has been that the consciousness on the planet is shifting. My first message to you was that the magnetic grid would shift accordingly in order to allow a higher consciousness to be in the couch of the magnetics of the planet. That is a metaphor, and what it means is that the magnetic grid of the Earth literally is allied to consciousness. Now, that was a stretch all those years ago to say those things, and there was no proof. Today there is. That has been part of what my partner does, is to go from city to city and to show all of the science and the proof of this. But that's not what we do today. You see, consciousness is starting to really shift. There are those who would ask a lot of questions, especially about the human body. We're in a session now which we will call a healing time. Not all of the channels will be about healing. This one truly is, for it asks a bigger question than anyone truly has asked. And that is this: is there something in the human body that is so different from consciousness that actually runs the show when it comes to your chemistry? And it's not your brain, and it's not your heart, and it's not your pineal. And the answer is yes. And it is well known by many. It even has a name, and the name is called innate. Innate is that which many have called the smart body. Smart because it knows a lot more than you do. A lot more. For instance, if you have an invasion, a virus, a bacteria, anything, innate knows it immediately. White blood cells are racing to the place where perhaps it occurred. You have no idea, and won't until the symptoms of that occur, maybe days later. Innate knows all of these things instantly. Dear ones, innate will know when the first cancer cell enters your body. And you'll find out perhaps weeks later, maybe even months later, when something just isn't right. And then the tests will begin. Therefore, innate is some very, very special thing. Every single human has it. Those who use it as a tool use it through a process they have called kinesiology. Some will call that muscle testing. That is one way to ask innate questions. Another process called body talk. It's the same kind of process, perhaps a little more refined, where it takes a trained medical person then to ask the questions of the body in a certain order to pinpoint the things that you want to know, that you need to know. Do you know your blood type? You say, well, yes, I had a test the other day. No, I didn't ask you that. Would you have known your blood type without the test? Of course not. Innate does. You see where I'm going with this? One of the most elegant processes that talks to innate in a curative fashion, instead of one that asks questions, is homeopathy. We have spoken of this before too. Here is a system of sending signals to your smart body of what you wish to cure. And through tinctures carefully prepared, there are tiny, tiny chemical amounts, much too small to cause any kind of a reaction, put into the body under the tongue, and it becomes curative. It's like innate starts to see, oh, that's what she wants. Oh, that's what he wants. And the curing begins. There is so much proof of this, dear ones, for hundreds of years. This is not something that has come since the shift. It's not something that you get from the New Age. It is not something that you get from channeling. This has been around a long time, and the reason I am speaking of it now is because this is what's going to change. I want you to show you just how archaic right now this whole process is. It's almost like you're standing in a dark room, and there's a wall, and you know on the other side of the wall is all of the secrets of your chemistry. What's going on? what's going on right now with your body. That's what you know is on the other side of that wall. And you see, you might say that wall is what separates you from innate. And at this point in human civilization, you're still poking the wall. You poke it to see if it pokes back. You ask the wall questions in a certain way. You give it tinctures and chemicals. It's all metaphoric. But do you see what I'm saying? Never does innate step forward and say, hello, it's nice to know you. What is it we're going to do today? What if you could do that? You have an amazing body intelligence. That's what it is. It's intelligent, that knows what's going on. That intelligence is responsible for all processes in the body. That particular innate not just knows what's going on, but you might say it's the control panel of what's going on. Of course, it works with the brain and consciousness, the heart, the pineal, but it doesn't represent itself as being one of those things. But it receives instructions from all of them. Here's what I want to tell you. That wall will soon become a piece of paper. And in that, you'll be able to not only see what it is that you cannot see now, but you're going to start realizing you can communicate. You can communicate one-on-one. What if you could talk to your innate right now? And that speaking that you would have would be you with yourself. Have you ever thought about speaking to your own innate in a friendly way, in an authoritative way? After all, you are the boss of your body. Years and years ago, I started saying it's time to talk to your cells. Talk to the cellular structure of your body. These are my, I would say, long-term instructions, even before these times occurred, this shift occurred. And now that is so much greater and grander than simply talking to your cells or even having a meeting. If you're in charge of your body, and if innate is there in every single human, and it is, what do you think innate would like? Put yourself in the place of being on the other side of the wall. What do you think innate would want? Here's the control panel for the human being, you, who is blocked from really seeing or talking to you. Every once in a while, it'll answer questions. Every once in a while, it'll see an instruction set come along, but it doesn't know you. What do you think it wants? If you could put a personality on innate, what would it want? I'll tell you what it wants. It wants you. More than anything else, your body would love to be able to have a conversation with you one-on-one. And what would you say to innate if the wall came down? And that, dear ones, is about healing. And that, dear ones, is what happens in the circle of 12, because, you see, innate is multidimensional. And you might say, well, how do you know that, Cryon? And I'll tell you, because DNA is multidimensional. That has been proven. Part of your cellular structure is multidimensional. Not all of it. But innate is part of all of those dimensionalities. And it's the reason you're not able to stand up and simply talk to it, because you remain in 3D. But that is starting to change. What would you say to innate? Years ago, I told my partner what to say to innate. And I said, innate is responsible for the quickness of your rejuvenation. Innate is also responsible for how often you rejuvenate, how often the cells divide. You might think that is a process that simply happens in the body. Innate controls it. There has to be a time clock. And if you do nothing and you say nothing, that time clock will simply happen by itself on its own. But if the boss wants to speak, and that's you, how about you say this? Count every other day. Let's have aging slow down. Let's not age with the clock that was given to you, body. Let's control it. Let's talk to Innate, who controls all things, and that is aging. And that's just one of so many things that you could say to your Innate. And does it work? Oh, yes, it works. I told you before that the body is designed to live a lot longer. Twice right now, maybe even 3 times what your lifespan is. And the only reason it doesn't is because it defaults to the clock that you were born with, not the one you're telling it. The circle of 12 puts you in a multidimensional place where you can begin to speak to your Innate. And that is what some of you are feeling, a meld that goes right into your cells. These are the messages that I want to give more and more. What is
were mysterious to me for a long time, and they've often come out of these last 2 years on the air.
Yeah. How wonderful. So thank you for submitting that question that was submitted way back in the past that is still relevant now and hopefully in the future too. And if you're wondering where that resource is, I'll give you a shortcut, cryon.com/questions.
And it's a resource, it's a mystery. You won't find that on my website. I don't think. I forget how many things we've removed in order to put new things up. But I believe that particular resource, that may be the only place to get to it, the only way you get to it.
Yeah, well, it's an easy one to find.
Yeah.
Cryon.com/questions, and you can scroll through the list of questions that were submitted a long time ago. So what we'd like to do now is move into a meditation and then a channel from Cryon. And so I invite you in this moment to close your eyes and allow all tension in your body to just dissolve. Just soften your face, soften your shoulders, soften your arms, your hands, your abdomen, your chest, your back, your legs, your calves, your feet. Allow it to completely soften and be supported in either the chair or perhaps you're lying down. Wherever you are, feel the support that is holding you. And this is a moment where you're asked to just simply let go of thoughts, let go of any focus that you have had in that question that was asked a moment ago about whether we still get the benefit of spirit when we can't focus or concentrate. Just allow all of that to drift. Allow those thoughts to drift away. Any concentration or thoughts, let them float onto a cloud that you're going to feel, sense, or visualize floating above you, swirling patterns of clouds that you can just throw any thoughts that are still lingering in your mind, your very active logic brain. Let those thoughts and that intellect get released onto the floating clouds, swirling above you, and you can pick them up when you come out of the meditation and channel. Just allow yourself to surrender to the moment and give permission to have that warm hug come to you from the Cryon entourage. And so, dear Cryon, we invite you to come and deliver your message to us.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. This is the second week of the month of a series for the new year. We told you that every single channel would have a different kind of subject, but specific to that which you call your new year. This is the time allocated by the entire planet. There are some exceptions, and that has to do with those in certain cultures who do not recognize it fully, but most calendars do. It is a time that you would recognize making resolutions, or perhaps taking stock of what happened the last year, looking at it retrospectively, saying what you wish, what you do not wish, and moving forward. And you've done this year after year. And often nothing much changes. It seems like a fun time to make these kinds of thoughts available for yourself, for your family, for others. For some, it's almost a fad. Some, it is very important. Some, it is spiritual. Let's talk about it. How would you approach this one? Now, if you were with us last week, we did a circle of 12, which talked about launching two ships. One was obviously, in this metaphor, a very old one. And in that ship were all of the old energies, the old ways, the old things. And in the new one, we didn't tell you. There wasn't much of anything. You see, it hadn't been created yet. That's the way these things are. Even today, in the questions and answers, the answer was given by my partner, you don't know what you don't know. And yet we are always asking you to trust that that will be benevolent when it comes. Because you've asked for it, because you've planned for it, even if you don't know what it is. Can you approach this next year with that attitude? Can you have the two ships yourself? Let's package this up in a way that makes sense. If you look upon your life right now, you would normally say, here are my resolutions. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. I want to do this, I want to renew that. I'd like to do this better. And that's how it goes, usually. What if instead, in your mind, you put things in packages, just like the two ships of the Circle of 12 in the first channeling of 2023? What is it that you would say you are stuck? And that resolution after resolution, every new year, you say, I'll do better, but you still feel you don't. And you know what it is. And it can be so many things. But you know personally what it is. What holds you back? What holds you from feeling good about yourself or self-worth? What holds you from moving forward spiritually, perhaps? And again, it can come in so many forms. It can come in that which is your emotions and your attitude or your physical. So many forms that will keep you from being you, and you know what they are. What if you visualize what they are, perhaps even write them down? Wow, that is frightening. To some, you don't want to even write them down. You don't want to give them energy. But what if you wrote them down on a piece of paper? These are the things that keep me where I am. I don't want to be where I am. These are the things where I will say I'm stuck because they keep coming back. They keep coming back. And what if you were to take figuratively those things or that list that you're building and you wrap it up in some kind of a package? And if you did, write it up and put it in a package that's lovely. It's a nice package. It's going to be a gift. In a moment, you'll see why. And another list you might put not what you don't want, but something new that you do. Don't make this a list that's always the same as it has been year to year. Try to alter it slightly so it sounds better to your own ears. Instead of writing what hasn't worked for you and has kept you away from things, you might say, I want to discover things that will increase my own self-worth, my own belief in me. Try not to make them specific, dear ones, because if you do, you will limit that which Spirit can bring you. Make them general and beautiful. I want to feel better for reasons I don't know why yet. I want to waken with a smile every day for reasons I don't know why yet, that will come my way. This is what I see for myself in this year. You're always safe to say, I want to come closer to the creative source. I want to know more about love, and that will help me. What a beautiful list you would create, which doesn't sound like, I want a new mate, or I want this or that, or I want to live in a different area. All of those things are so linear. What if those things could be incorporated in that multidimensional list that I just told you about? That you're saying, I don't know what it'll be, but I want to feel better about myself. This is the key. This is the key to you allowing what's going to happen next to be anything, as long as it creates that which you've asked for. You see the difference between that linear list and that multidimensional list? Now, the linear one we ask you to create is the one of things that stick and that are stuck and are not working anymore. Go ahead and write them down and make them specific. I don't like the way I do this or that. I'm tired of vowing to this or that or doing these things incorrectly, and I've done them for years and years and years and years. Put that list and write it up. And I want that list to go in a package. Go ahead and wrap it up, perhaps like you would even at a holiday package or a Christmas or birthday, or make it lovely. Because you're going to make an offering that's coming in a moment. The other list you have made, dear ones, I don't want you to put it in a package at all. I want you to put it in your pocket. Because this is the one that you put next to you. You don't wrap it and send it away. You keep it next to you all the time. You might even keep it by your bedside. You might even look at it. You might refer to it on a regular basis, just to remind yourself what might happen, what is possible. Now for that lovely little package you made with all those linear things that you don't like, I'm going to ask you to do something that psychologists all over the world will nod and say, you're right. It's a ceremony of sorts, you might say. You're going to take that gift and you're going to offer it for destruction. The best way, dear ones, would be into a fire, because then you watch it being consumed and your mind sees it as burning up. Your mind sees it as destruction and it goes away. It cannot be retrieved. And in that, you are saying to the universe, to Spirit, to everyone around you who watches you do it, if you choose to do that, you're saying, it is done. It is finished. And those thoughts that I had and those things that are stuck will not have to come back. They're not me anymore. They belong to the fire. The things that are me are these more general requests that I have for myself, for Spirit, that are in my pocket. Let things happen for me which will create self-worth, health, beauty, kindness, compassion, and put a smile on my face. I don't have to know what they are, but I'll know them when they occur. And the old things that I wrote on the list and put into the fire will no longer be stuck and will allow the good things to come to me from now on. It's more than a resolution, dear one. It's a commitment. Yes or no? Do you mean it? Do you not mean it? These are the times when you put together so many kinds of promises to yourself, to others, for this renewing, as you have it on your calendar, a fresh start, as you have it on your calendar. And that's why I give you these things now, to do that which I've just said. And anytime you doubt, just take that list out of your pocket or off the bedstead and remember this channeling, or listen to it again, or read the things that you wrote for yourself. Nothing is more personal than this for you. I give you these things and this exercise because I know it works. I know who you are. Old soul, light worker, listening to me now. All these things are possible. I'm crying in love with humanity. And so it is.
And in your own time, and when you are ready, bring your awareness back into your body. If you've had your eyes closed, you may open your eyes. And we're going to move into the next part of our program. And Lee and I have been waiting for such a long time to bring a very dear friend of ours who has travelled the world with us back when we were travelling to come onto the show. Her name is Lily Wong, and she's a specialist in light language. But I just want to make sure that Lily's on the Zoom with us. Lily, are you there?
Hello, here I am.
Well, other than being a dear friend and travelling the world with us, there's a special connection that Lily shares with us and the Lemurian Teaching Wheel. So we want to tell you about that before we read the bio.
Yeah, many of you know that our Chrysalis Academy is launched. The Lemurian Teaching Wheel course is now active and available. Now, if this is news to you, members, then please start opening my emails to you. Did you know that Healing Wednesday members receive a discount for our Chrysalis Academy courses? Now maybe you'll open them. Well, okay. Well, it is here, and the core information that was given in Hawaii.
A partner, a marriage partner. And I believe my second husband was just exactly that. However, that was probably the last impulsive thing I ever did, because I married him within a month, and 3 years later discovered that he had been molesting my son. And that was quite a disappointment. And I didn't quite have the tools to deal with that at the time. I mean, obviously, I left immediately. I went through the whole court system and put him in jail. And now, after my awakening, I've realized that everything happens for a reason, that life sort of orchestrates itself for the greatest good of humankind. At that time, I went into therapy, and I was lucky because I got free therapy and good counseling. I did journaling, which I still do. I learned to meditate, which I still do. So those are the tools that helped me through that. After my spiritual awakening, I really realized that in true form, good comes from everything, no matter how disappointing or disheartening it may seem in the moment. Because in that energy, in that time, after I had awakened, I still had to go through the whole forgiveness process, because, as you know, you have to forgive everyone of everything, including yourself. And for me, really, that the most difficult part was probably forgiving myself for making the decision to marry this man, for thinking that he was my soulmate, and, all those stories that we tell each other. But at the same time, he had to have been a soulmate. Otherwise, we would not have gotten together. But a soulmate is not always wonderful bliss and living happily ever after. What happened after we were divorced and I put him in jail for child molestation, I was an instrumental witness in getting the laws of the United States changed to register pedophiles. That was very powerful. I was instrumental in setting up and support and raising funds for the Child Advocacy Program in Springfield, Missouri. I've actually written 3 plays and performed them all. One of them I recorded and televised to raise money for victims of violent crime. So even though at the time it was a tremendous disappointment in life, I thought, God, what were you thinking? It did play out, and I realized that I had got closer to my son. We both were in counseling for 5 years. Without that experience, neither one of us would be who we are today. And I think that's one of the ways that we can understand a disappointment in our world, is to first journal about it, realize that you created this. No matter how difficult it is to believe that, you still created it. And you created it for the evolution of humankind, as well as your own evolution. And that's kind of, Monica and Lee, that's kind of my feeling on the situation, is that my creation and the laws of the United States and Missouri have changed. So that's a good thing, because we know good does come from everything.
Wow, that is profound. I was not expecting such a deep, transformative result from that question. And deeply personal. So thank you for sharing that, Marilyn. Thank you.
You are welcome. It is a difficult thing to talk about sometimes, but I figure the experience was given to me so other people can learn and grow.
And not only that, there's been significant change as a result with all those action steps that took place. Wow, wow. My goodness. Lee, I'd like to ask you if you've experienced a major disappointment and how did you overcome it?
I think I'd like to go in the other room now. There is nothing that I can say that would even come close to I changed the laws of the United States.
So
I won't tell you anyway. I'm just going to say that is I didn't expect that either. Marilyn, is awesome.
It is. But Lee, listen, there's people out there also watching
I know.
that would think the same.
I know. So let's start in reverse.
Yes.
And Marilyn kind of mentioned it. I'm going to give you mine, but I'll say this to you. How everyone has one, I would say. Often it's a betrayal. It was in Marilyn's case. It was in my case. It can be different kinds of betrayal. And when I say let's start it backwards, as you sit here now, how do you feel about it? So this tells us a lot about, have we carried it into our lives? Does it poke us and bother us to this day? And if it does, we got work to do. I'll tell you what it was, and it was on the cusp of me finding Cryon. So I was, before my Cryon life, and this was I think this happened about 30, maybe 32 years ago. And that was when I had my own studio, recording studio, and this was a big one. It was one that could fit a small orchestra in it. And this was my life and the pinnacle of everything I was doing. I was in my mid-40s, couldn't be better. I had built it, and I was just doing exactly what I'd always wanted to. I had a business arrangement with some people who used my studio a lot, and these people had enabled me to be in their building. It couldn't be any better than that. So he built my studio in their building. And we cruised along for a couple of years, and I thought this was wonderful, and I had a very updated new studio, big one, about ready to maybe build another one, and they decided to sell the building and go. And that would mean, because I was not on the lease, that my studio would be torn out. You got the picture? So suddenly, I would have had nothing. I would have had no studio, I would have had no business, I'd had no clients, and according to the lease, I would have had to tear it out at my expense. That's the way leases go. This was a full-on betrayal to me. To others, they would say, well, this business is business, but these were my friends. These were people I had partnered with for, at that point in time, maybe 10 years. And so when I got the news, of course, the rug had been pulled out for me. And what do you do? How do you feel? This is full betrayal. And of course, I went to zero for a while and tried to figure out, in my own linear way, what is it that I can do? I didn't have the wherewithal, the means, the finances or anything to even afford to do the legal thing and tear it out. I mean, I would have had to go bankrupt, and that this was not in the plan of my life. And in this early days of Cryon, these are the things that Cryon brought to me so that I could experience them in a way that I could then tell others what I did, what happened, and give, I think, instructions, because it's kind of like you can't do it until you go through it. You can't teach it unless you go through it. And I did. And at that point in time, I got this message from Cryon. Remember, I'd only been channeling a couple of years from it. I was just barely coming out, just in the honeymoon of it. I was still working. I wasn't even channeling. There were these first 3 years or so in my life of channeling Cryon where I did not have, I wasn't channeling every day. I wasn't doing what I do. I was just barely understanding it. But the understanding and what Cryon said was, be quiet. Be quiet. Don't do anything yet, because there's more. So I sat and I tried to be quiet without my mind racing forward, saying, you got to deal with this. Something's got to happen. You got to call an attorney. You got to, and Cryon was always saying, be quiet. And then I got the message, and the message from Cryon was say, go visit the owner of the building who's buying it. And I did. And that, long story short, I was shaking in my boots to talk to this person who didn't know me, who was expecting me to tear out the studio so they could have the building. And he said, I don't need the whole building. I only need the portion they're leaving. You can stay. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. This might even fit into one of the questions that's going to be asked soon, is what was a highlight of your life? The first time I got to see Spirit working. The first time I got to experience the power of intuition that trumps, I'm sorry, didn't mean to say the word, that trumps everything. Intuition is king. It's not your linear mind. You got to use both of them. You have to use, what is the intuitive thought? What am I getting from Spirit? What does the field say? And then what do I now do that's logical that will cooperate with that? First time I ever did it, first time I had to do it. What was my reaction to the men? I sat down with them and I told them that I was staying in the building and that what I had done, and their faces were, they were happy for me because they realized what they had done. But I also said, and I've also learned, gentlemen, that I'm never going to let anybody else control my life. That made them angry because they didn't feel they were controlling my life. They were just doing business. Maybe today they get the idea. But we continued this partnership, this relationship, with me and my studio and the same thing, even for some years after that, even though it was never quite the same, because, of course, I didn't trust them. But that was, I would say, the major disappointment, the betrayal that I had. Betrayal is different for men and for women. In women, it's often betrayal of a spouse or that. In men, it has to do with survival. It has to do with often earning a living, supplying for, being able to feed your family. And so this was it for me. Now, when I look back, and here's what I want to tell you, there is no animosity. There's nothing at all. I look at the situation as something that I recovered quickly from it because I got solution. And I also realized that I didn't have to carry it and be mad at them for what they did, and even for a year or two or whatever, much less all my life. It's just something that happened, and now it's gone. That's how I deal with it.
Wow. Something that happened and now it's gone, because the answer, I love that Cryon came in the stillness. I think that's also very applicable to all of us facing challenges, to get into the quiet, get into that stillness and listen to those intuitive messages, or messages from Cryon, or messages from the Creator, your guides. They are trying to communicate to you. Next question.